The ballroom shimmered with corporate polish. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over the pristine white tablecloths and branded wine glasses. A sleek banner stretched across the far wall. Launch night, Project Nova, the future begins. And beneath it, a crowd of executives, investors, and my colleagues buzzed with excitement. I stood near the back of the room, champagne flute in hand, wearing a midnight blue dress I'd saved for this occasion. Not because I liked attention, but because I had earned tonight. For the past 14 months, I had lived and breathed Project Nova. The design, the core functionality, even the user interface. It was mine. I had built it from the ground up, poured my weekends and holidays into it while others clocked out at 5. So tonight I had expected recognition. Not confetti or a parade, just acknowledgement. Respect. A thank you. I scanned the room, heart pounding. My manager, Thomas, took the stage. He adjusted his cufflinks, smiled into the mic, and the crowd fell silent. Tonight, he began, we celebrate innovation, passion, and the incredible team behind Project Nova. A warm ripple of applause followed. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. Thomas continued, but there's one person I really want to highlight. Someone who went above and beyond. Someone whose leadership and vision brought this product to life. My lips curled into a soft smile. I didn't want to be arrogant, but I knew what I had done. The sleepless nights, the hundreds of rejected drafts, the stress-induced migraines. Thomas beamed, then turned slightly toward the front row. Let's give a huge round of applause to Kevin. Our real MVP applause erupted. My smile froze. Kevin? The room thundered with claps and whistles as Kevin, who had joined the project 3 months ago as a consultant, stood up, pretending to look surprised. He did a bashful little wave, shook Thomas's hand, then took the mic to say how grateful he was. I felt a numbness spread through my chest. My fingers clenched around the delicate stem of my champagne flute. I tried to keep smiling. Kevin. He'd joined late, had no experience in product design, and only sat in meetings taking credit for work already done. He had barely touched a single line of code or design logic. I had written the specification. I had defended the pitch. I had done the testing. And he was the MVP? Thomas wasn't done. And that's not all, he said, grinning at Kevin. We've also decided to officially promote Kevin to head of product innovation. Another wave of applause. Laughter, cheering. My world tilted slightly. I clapped too. What else was I supposed to do? Throw my glass? Scream? Cry? I clapped like the good team player they expected me to be. I even nodded when people glanced at me. A few offered polite smiles. Those half-hearted expressions people give when they know you've been screwed but are too scared to say anything. I caught Kevin's eye briefly. He looked away. Of course he did. The rest of the night passed in a blur. People toasted, posed for selfies with the product, complimented the team. I said thank you when someone called it a triumph. I even forced a smile when Kevin said, couldn't have done it without everyone's support. I said nothing when Thomas made a joke about me training Kevin so well. But inside, I was unraveling. Later, I slipped outside onto the balcony, away from the clinking glasses and hollow praise. The cool night air hit my skin and cleared the fog from my mind. I pulled out my phone, opened a folder in my email drafts, and reread the document I had written months ago. Just in case. It was short. Legal. Binding, U.S. Patent Application Number 2, 209-NV01, Proprietary Design Architecture for Project Nova. Owner, Jessica R. Lang. I had filed it 9 months ago, quietly, through a third-party attorney, because something in me, something small but insistent, had whispered that if I didn't protect myself, no one else would. I stared out over the city skyline, heart still racing but no longer from hurt. Let them cheer for Kevin. Let them hand him my title. Let them pretend I didn't exist. On Monday, they'd find out the truth. Not through a speech, not through revenge. Just through a legal notice on Thomas's desk, signed, sealed, and perfectly timed. And when they did, they would realize they had promoted the wrong person. And the real MVP had just gotten started. Monday mornings at the office usually hummed with forced cheerfulness. Cheap coffee, light banter, and the quiet dread of another week under Thomas's management. But this morning, it was different. I stepped through the automatic doors at 8:03 a.m., right on time, heels tapping steadily on the polished floor. Something was off. The receptionist, Melissa, usually glued to her screen with earbuds in, looked up when I walked in. Her eyes flicked to her monitor and back to me. She gave me a strange smile. Nervous, almost apologetic. I said nothing. Just walked past her and swiped my badge. I didn't go straight to my desk. I went to the copy room, empty this early, closed the door behind me and pulled out my phone. There it was, exactly as I scheduled it. 8 a.m., delivered to Thomas's inbox and BCC'd to legal, HR, and the executive board. Subject: ownership of patent, Nanj 2, 209-NV01 body. Please be advised that the proprietary core design and software architecture for Project Nova are registered under U.S. patent application, so 209-N. V01, submitted under my name, Jessica R. Lang. All commercial use of this product must be licensed or renegotiated under applicable IP law. This notification is formal and effective immediately. Attached: PDF of the filed patent, attorney's letter, and digital timestamp documentation. It was quiet in the room. Cold. Still. I breathed in. Outside. Then I walked to my desk as if nothing had happened. Kevin was already there. He smiled when he saw me, like the past Friday never happened. "Hey, Jess," he said, sipping a green smoothie. "Rough weekend, huh?" I smiled back. "Not really." He kept smiling, but looked confused. I didn't elaborate. Let him enjoy his smoothie. A few minutes later, I opened my inbox and watched as the reply chain began. First, legal. "Jessica, thank you for the documentation. We're escalating immediately." Then, HR. "We acknowledge receipt and will follow up pending clarification from executive leadership." And then, nothing. For about 10 minutes, the office carried on like normal, until Thomas's office door slammed open. The whole floor flinched. He stood there, holding his phone in one hand and a printed document in the other. His face was pale, like someone had just told him the building was on fire. "Jessica," he said, too loudly. "My office, now." A few heads turned. Kevin looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. I stood slowly, smoothed my skirt, and followed Thomas inside. The door shut with a soft click, but the tension behind it was sharp enough to cut steel. Thomas threw the document on his desk. "Is this a joke?" "No," I said calmly, sitting down across from him. "It's a legal filing. You've had a copy since 8 a.m. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "You can't just file a patent on company time. Project Nova was our initiative." I tilted my head. "Actually, I started the core design before Nova was even greenlit. Check the timestamps. Every draft, every spec, every prototype. Originated from my personal workstation. Off hours, on my own equipment. You still used company resources." I didn't. I was careful. If you'd ever actually paid attention to who built what, you'd know that. His jaw tightened. "You're trying to hold the company hostage." "No, Thomas, I'm protecting what's mine. You decided to stand on a stage and promote someone who barely touched the code. You used my work, gave my spotlight away. And you didn't even think to ask who actually created the product." He was breathing harder now. "You blindsided us. Number I gave you exactly what you wanted. You treated me like I didn't exist. Now you'll have to negotiate with the person who actually owns your flagship product." There was a long silence. Then he slumped back into his chair. Do you have any idea how bad this looks? We just announced Nova to our partners. We're in talks with investors. If word gets out that we don't even control our own IP? I shrugged gently. Should have thought about that before you handed the MVP title to Kevin and made me invisible. You're going to kill this company. I'm offering you a licensing deal. He looked up, startled. I continued. I'm not here to destroy anything, but I'm not going to let you walk over me and profit from it. You want to use my design? Fine. We can talk contracts. Real ones, with real compensation. And if we refuse? I stood. Then your investors will find out your product has no legal right to launch, and your new head of product can try rebuilding it from scratch. His face went pale again. I walked to the door, paused, and turned. You handed him my crown, Thomas, but it turns out it wasn't yours to give. Then I stepped out, closing the door behind me. Back at my desk, I could feel the shift in the air. Kevin glanced at me, confused, sensing something had cracked open but not knowing what. Melissa was staring at her screen like it had just started playing a horror film. And as for me? I smiled quietly and began working through my inbox. Monday had only just begun. By Tuesday morning, the whispers had turned into full-blown conversations. People didn't even try to hide it anymore. Eyes followed me through the hallways. Conversations abruptly stopped when I entered the break room. And Kevin, poor, oblivious Kevin, was unraveling by the hour. I found him hovering near the espresso machine, his tie askew, furiously scrolling through his phone like it had wronged him personally. He looked up when I walked in, eyes wide. Jessica, he started, his voice tight with urgency. Can we talk? I poured myself a coffee, gave him a polite smile, and said, Sure. He waited until the room cleared before leaning in. I heard some things. About the patent. About what you did. What I did? I echoed calmly. You filed it under your name? Before the company even approved Nova? His voice was pitched somewhere between confused and panicked. Do you know what that means? I know exactly what it means. He blinked. So, what, you're taking credit for the whole thing now? I turned to face him fully. Kevin, you were brought in after everything had already been built. You didn't write a single line of code. You didn't design the system. You showed up, sat in a few meetings, and regurgitated things you overheard from me. Let's not pretend you were the brains behind Nova. His jaw twitched. I was named head of product. I nodded. You were. Based on a lie, he fell silent. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You were handed something you didn't earn? You could have said something. You knew it wasn't yours, but you didn't. Kevin looked down, ashamed for a moment. Then, like a man clinging to a life raft, he said, Maybe we can work something out. I raised an eyebrow. Work something out? I don't know. Maybe we could partner on the IP or share the rights. I mean, if we both benefit. I cut him off with a quiet laugh. Kevin, you had your moment on that stage. You smiled for the cameras. You took my credit and cashed it in for a promotion. I hope it felt good. But this? I held up my coffee. This is mine. And with that, I walked away. By the time I returned to my desk, I had 3 meeting requests. One from legal, one from the CTO, and one from Thomas, marked urgent. I ignored Thomas's for now. The meeting with legal was clinical, brief, and full of quiet panic. They asked for clarification, timelines, documentation, everything. I gave them what they needed. Calmly, professionally. My lawyer had prepped me well. I didn't flinch once. Later that afternoon, I finally accepted Thomas's meeting. He looked different now. Hollow-eyed, like a man watching the structure he built slowly sink into the ground. Jessica, he said as I entered, motioning for me to sit. Look, I've had time to think. Maybe we started off wrong. I sat, folding my hands in my lap. We didn't start anything, Thomas. You made a decision. You gave Kevin my work and hoped I'd stay silent. He sighed, It was never about taking anything from you. It was optics. Investors like flashy promotions. Kevin's good with people and I'm not? I said flatly. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He shifted in his seat. Let's get to the point. What do you want? We can bring you into the leadership team. Co-lead with Kevin. A title raise, hell, we can even revisit equity options. I stared at him. You think I want to co-lead with the guy who took credit for my work? He looked irritated. This is a compromise. No, I said, standing. This is damage control. You're not making me an offer. You're begging me to plug a leak. But the ship's already taking on water. He stood too, now desperate. Jessica, if you do this, you'll burn every bridge in this company. I paused at the door. You already lit the match. I'm just walking away before the whole place goes up in flames. When I stepped out, Kevin was standing near the hallway listening. He straightened up quickly, but the look in his eyes was telling. Panic, regret, maybe even guilt. But it didn't matter anymore. That night, I received an email from an old contact at Ramsey Tech, one of the largest enterprise firms in the state. They had seen the patent filing. Someone on the inside had forwarded it around. The email was short but direct. Jessica, we've reviewed your patent. It's impressive. Would you be open to a conversation about a leadership role here at Ramsey? We're expanding our R&D department and need someone exactly like you. Let us know. David. I sat back in my chair reading the email again. The product they ignored, the woman they passed over, the patent they thought they owned. Now suddenly, I was the one they all wanted. By Wednesday morning, the buzz in the office had turned into a quiet storm. No one said it outright, but everyone knew. People had seen the emails. Word had spread like wildfire. And still, no official announcement. Kevin had retreated into his corner office. Yes, my old desk area had been gutted over the weekend and refurbished for him. Now he sat behind a glass wall, pacing endlessly, holding phone calls that sounded increasingly frantic. At one point, I passed by and heard him say, I didn't know, okay? No one told me she had a patent. No one needed to tell him. He knew. He just never thought I'd act. As for Thomas, he was crumbling beneath the weight of his own arrogance. He tried to put on a brave face, walking around with fake composure, but even his smiles were breaking at the edges. At 9 a.m., I received a new meeting request. Subject, Emergency Strategy Session. Attendees, Thomas, Legal Counsel, Board Liaison, Jessica Lang. Location, Executive Boardroom Time, 10 a.m. So this was it. The fallout. When I walked into the boardroom, everyone was already seated. Thomas looked like he hadn't slept. The company's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Fiona, gave me a curt nod. Next to her sat Andrew Lynn, the board liaison. Calm, curious, silent. I took a seat at the end of the table, crossed my legs, and waited. Thomas cleared his throat. Thank you for joining us, Jessica. I nodded politely. He continued. We've reviewed your patent documentation, and we acknowledge that the core design and architecture of Nova are indeed legally filed under your name. Fiona added, legally speaking, the company cannot proceed with external licensing, funding, or continued commercialization of Project Nova without your signed consent or a negotiated agreement. Andrew looked directly at me. Which brings us to this meeting. What would you like to happen, Jessica? The room went quiet. Every eye turned to me, waiting. I leaned back, letting the silence build. Then I spoke, slowly, clearly. I want ownership of what I built to be respected. I want my name restored to the project, public acknowledgement of my work, and I want Kevin removed from the head of product title effective immediately. Thomas stiffened. That's not reasonable. I cut him off. What's not reasonable is erasing someone's work and giving credit to a fraud. Fiona cleared her throat. We can discuss terms, but any restructuring would have to involve a full HR process. I don't need the job back, I said. I want the record set straight, and I want a licensing deal on my terms. You can keep using Nova, but you pay me for it. Andrew tilted his head. And if we agree? Then I walk away, I said, folding my hands. Clean, quiet, no public fallout. You keep your launch, I keep my dignity. Thomas slammed his hand lightly on the table. This is blackmail. No, I said evenly. This is business. You just don't like that I'm the one holding the cards now. Andrew nodded slowly, clearly impressed. Let's draft some options. An hour later, I walked out of that boardroom with something no title could ever give me. Power. Not borrowed, not gifted. Earned. By the afternoon, the first signs of the company's scramble were visible. The PR team pulled the official launch announcement off the website. Kevin's name was removed from internal memos. Quiet edits, subtle retractions, but people noticed. Rachel, a developer who had been with the company longer than I had, caught me in the hallway. They're calling it a miscommunication, she whispered. But everyone knows. Honestly, Ida, we're all rooting for you. I smiled. Thank you. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker below. My inbox pinged. From Ramsey Tech subject, formal offer letter. Jessica, we're thrilled to offer you the position of Director of Product Innovation, effective immediately. Package details are attached, including full creative autonomy, stock options, and relocation support. We'd be honored to have you on board. David, I opened the PDF. The numbers were more than generous, but it wasn't the salary that caught my attention. It was the title. Director. No begging, no proving, no one stealing credit. I stared at the offer, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from freedom. I had options. I had leverage. I had my name back. And Thomas? He had just learned what happens when you build your legacy on someone else's work. By Thursday morning, the shift was undeniable. Kevin hadn't been seen since the afternoon before. Rumor was he called in sick. But I knew the truth. He was hiding. And Thomas? He was suddenly quiet. No angry meetings, no hallway intimidation, just long, closed-door sessions with legal and the board. The company was unraveling from the inside, and I didn't need to lift a finger. I was preparing to forward Ramsey Tech's offer to my attorney when an unexpected calendar invite popped up. Subject: follow-up discussion. Final proposal. From Thomas time, 11 a.m. Location: conference room 4. I stared at it for a moment, then clicked accept. Let's see what desperate looked like in a tie. When I entered the room, Thomas was already there, alone, pacing near the window. He turned when he saw me, that fake corporate smile stretched across his face like a worn-out mask. Jessica, he said too cheerfully. Thanks for coming. I gave him a curt nod and sat down. Let's get to it. He cleared his throat and slid a folder across the table. We've reviewed your terms and we're prepared to meet them. I opened the folder. Inside was a printed agreement. Licensing rights, acknowledgement of patent ownership, and a formal correction on all public-facing materials. My name would be reinstated. Kevin's would be removed. There was even a clause offering me an executive consultant title should I choose to remain affiliated. It was neat, clean, legal, and too late. I looked up. This is good. A week ago, I might have signed this. His smile faltered. Might have? I leaned forward. I'm not staying, Thomas. He blinked. But you made it clear where I stood. You humiliated me in front of the entire company. You took my work, my ideas, my effort, and gave it to someone who didn't earn it. Now you want to fix it. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because you're afraid. He swallowed hard. I admit I mishandled things. I nodded. You did. And now you get to sit in that. He looked at me for a long time, the weight of reality finally settling on his face. Jessica, this company has been your home. No, Thomas, I said calmly. It was just a building where I worked. A home doesn't throw you out when someone shinier walks in. He tried again, quieter this time. You really won't reconsider? I stood up. I already have an offer. A better one. Where my work is respected the first time, not after a legal threat. You'll never find another team like this one. I raised an eyebrow. You're right. Most teams don't pretend their MVP doesn't exist. He didn't follow me when I left the room, and this time no one tried to stop me in the hallway. I walked straight back to my desk, opened the offer from Ramsey Tech, and typed 2 words. I accept. Then I opened a blank email. My final one. Subject, resignation, effective, immediately to Thomas, HRCC, legal executive board body. Effective immediately, I resign from my position at this company. My licensing terms, as negotiated, remain in place. Thank you for the learning experiences, however difficult they were. I wish the team all the best. Jessica Lang, I hit send. And just like that, 5 years of dedication ended with a quiet click. As I packed my things into a small cardboard box, my coworkers started to gather. Rachel was the first to speak. You're really leaving? She asked, voice low but full of admiration. I nodded. It's time. She glanced toward Thomas's office. It won't be the same without you. I hope not, I said with a small smile. Maybe now it'll be better for the next person. As I walked toward the elevator, Kevin appeared from around the corner. He froze when he saw me, clearly unsure whether to speak. He opened his mouth, closed it. Don't, I said gently. Just don't. He nodded, ashamed, and I walked past him without another word. When the elevator doors closed, I looked at my reflection in the brushed metal. I didn't look angry or hurt. I looked free. By that afternoon, I was sitting in a quiet cafe across from David, the director from Ramsey Tech. He raised his cup toward me. To fresh starts, he said. I clinked my cup with his. An earned respect. It had been exactly 4 weeks since I walked out of Thomas's company for the last time. 4 weeks since I left behind the glass walls, the broken promises, and the people who smiled to your face while undermining you behind closed doors. And yet, the echoes of that place still found me. From the comfort of my new office at Ramsey Tech, a real office with my name on the door, I watched the pieces of my past slowly collapse under their own weight. It started with a phone call from Rachel. Jessica, she said, practically whispering even though she wasn't on speaker. You are not going to believe this. Try me. Kevin just resigned. I blinked. Seriously? Yeah, after he was reassigned to a non-product role. People started questioning what he actually did, and it became obvious. He didn't do anything. Apparently, he messed up a live demo with one of the investors, said something about a feature that didn't exist. I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. But I did let out a long, slow breath. What about Thomas? I asked. Rachel hesitated. You didn't hear this from me, but the board's meeting behind closed doors. There's talk about replacing him. That part did make me smile. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even personal. It was balance. The truth had a way of forcing its way out, whether people were ready for it or not. At Ramsey Tech, things were moving fast. I had already led 2 product review sessions, restructured an underperforming division, and was asked to speak at a Women in Tech leadership panel the following month. People listened to me here. Not because I was loud, or because I fought for the mic, but because they respected what I brought to the table. Because my work spoke for itself. And finally, someone was actually listening. Late one Thursday afternoon, I was heading to the break room for tea when I saw David, my new director, walking toward me with a grin. Jessica, he said, falling into step beside me. Just got off the phone with one of our new clients, Dale Partners. Wait, that's one of Thomas's firm's biggest accounts. Was, David corrected with a smirk. Apparently they weren't happy with how things were handled after you left. They reached out to us directly. Said if you're leading development here, they want in. I raised my brows, pleasantly surprised. That makes 3, doesn't it? 4, he said. Another one emailed this morning. I paused, trying to process it. The company that treated me like I was expendable was now bleeding clients. Because of me. Not because I fought to steal them, but because I had built relationships. I had earned trust. And when I left, that trust went with me. David must have seen the look on my face because he added, "You know, I've been in this business a long time. Seen a lot of people get stepped on, ignored, especially women. But I've rarely seen someone flip the board this cleanly." I smiled. I didn't want to burn it down. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. "Well," he said, holding the break room door open for me. "You do, and you always have." Later that evening, as I walked through the quiet halls of Ramsey Tech, I couldn't help but reflect. I had spent 5 years trying to prove myself in a company that had already made up its mind about me. They didn't see value. They saw convenience. And when they thought they could get something shinier, louder, easier, they handed over my crown without even asking who really earned it. But the truth? Some people are not replaceable. And I was never one of the ones you could just discard and forget. Back in my office, I sat at my desk, sipping my tea and watching the sunset through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I opened my inbox to find a new message from Fiona, the legal counsel from my old job. Subject: Update on licensing agreement. Hi, Jessica. Just confirming all payments have been processed and contract terms are in full effect. If any issues arise, don't hesitate to reach out. Wishing you the best. Fiona below, it was another message from Thomas. Subject: No subject. Jessica, I just wanted to say I was wrong. About everything. I never saw it until it was too late. You didn't just build Nova, you were the heart of that entire team. I hope you're doing well. You deserve it. I stared at it for a long moment, then closed the email without replying. No bitterness, no need for revenge. Because the real win wasn't making him grovel. The real win was knowing I'd never have to work for someone like him again. As the office lights dimmed and the city began to glow below me, I smiled softly to myself. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of the career I'd built with my own hands, my ideas, my voice. And now, finally, on my terms.